Tonight, the Red Cross has been called in to help in one Ontario hospital amid a surge in children's respiratory illness.
I'm extremely worried about what Canadian kids are facing right now.
Calling in the Red Cross to help in our hospitals should never have to happen. Full stop.
As children's hospitals across the province continue to be overwhelmed, a facility in Ottawa is having to call in reinforcements. Will Toronto be next? Plus,
it's those people who bought condos with short closings, so 2-3 years out, that are in a lot of trouble right now.
it may have seemed like a good investment years ago, but rising interest rates and falling sale prices are now pushing some investors out of Toronto's once red-hot condo market. And
never in a million years did I think that I'd be able to build a satellite by the time I graduated.
A group of students at York University are saying goodbye to a satellite they've been working on for 4 years as it gets set to be launched into orbit to gather critical information on climate change. Good evening. I'm Kelda Yoon. It's being seen in children's hospitals across the province, a surge in young patients with respiratory illnesses. Now, for one facility in Ottawa, it's gotten so overwhelming, the Red Cross is now sending staff to help get the crisis under control. Lorena Redekop has more.
The latest numbers show a shockingly high number of children across the country in hospital with the flu. One organization says 12 children's hospitals in Canada are tracking this data.
In the last week of November, we saw 223 admissions to the hospital for children suffering from side effects of the flu. This number would typically be 10, 11, 12 kids a week.
But it was a different situation from a few weeks ago when RSV was the issue. The Premier says there are some promising signs.
We're seeing the pediatric illness actually level. Up in Ottawa, they're seeing a spike, but here in Toronto, we're seeing it level off, which is good news.
Asked for more details, the government pointed to the latest national virus data. While it shows RSV has stabilized, influenza numbers are not just higher than normal, but also rising. All as this week, the Red Cross will be sending in people to Ottawa's pediatric hospital, announced by CHEO over the weekend.
Calling in the Red Cross to help in our hospitals should never have to happen. Full stop.
And our government has been moving all kinds of things in order to make sure we're prepared for the fall surge, and that is why we opened a second pediatric ICU at CHEO.
Liberal health critic Adil Shamji was asked whether he's heard of other pediatric hospitals possibly following CHEO's lead.
How close they are to seeking out humanitarian and disaster relief organizations for assistance, I don't know, but it's a damning indictment that even one hospital in our province has done so.
I'm extremely worried about what Canadian kids are facing right now.
The Prime Minister, at an event with the Premier, says his government will take advice from experts on what it can do to keep kids safe.
That the number one thing we can all do to keep ourselves safe, to keep our loved ones safe, is make sure that you're up to date in your COVID vaccinations, and while you're at it, get your flu shot.
Late this afternoon, Sick Kids gave an update saying it continues to see high numbers in its ICU. It's still doing fewer surgeries so that staff can help out in intensive care. It says it's also in communication with other hospitals that can take on extra pediatric patients. And it says at this point, unlike CHEO, it's not seeking any extra help from outside organizations. Lorena Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
Toronto police announcing a major firearm bust today. 6 people are now facing hundreds of charges after an 8-month investigation called Project Barbell. While the chief is commending the police work, he's also calling on the federal government to do more to prevent the flow of guns into the country. Chris Glover reports.
Police released this suspect's image last fall after someone fired several shots during a fight at Bar Karma on Queen West. Now police say he's also a leader of an illegal firearms ring in Toronto.
In front of you today are 62 firearms, including 5 AR-15 semi-automatic rifles.
The chief announcing he was one of 6 people arrested, now facing 260 charges following an 8-month police operation.
I am extremely confident and can state without reservation that this particular investigation has absolutely increased the level of public safety.
One of the guns was stolen from a break-and-enter in Ontario. The rest are from the U.S., primarily Arizona and Texas, often bought for $1,000 in the States. Police say they'll fetch $6,000 in Toronto.
There needs to be an understanding that if you're going to engage in this for a profit motive, there's substantial liability engaging in this. Because again, the impact and the trauma is pretty significant.
The chief took the opportunity to advocate for tougher penalties for gun offenders, along with more money for border agents.
It is very triggering for the people involved.
Ken Price says even successful police operations are difficult to hear about. He's been a gun safety advocate ever since his daughter Samantha was shot but survived the Danforth attack in 2018.
We can't arrest our way out of this problem. So it's not just a law and order response. It will take all of the things that are in Bill C-21.
But Bill C-21 is controversial. Montreal Canadiens goalie Carey Price recently posting his anger that his hunting rifle would become illegal if it was passed.
The gun in Carey Price's social media post is legal and will continue to be legal even after we pass Bill C-21.
The public safety minister says Price and other hunters are wrong. As for the Toronto police chief's demands, Marco Mendicino says $450 million has been spent cracking down on the border in the last 2 years.
Do we need to do more? Absolutely.
Reinforcing the priority shared by so many that the best way to reduce gun violence is to stop the guns from ever getting here. Chris Glover, CBC News, Toronto.
For years, investors have flocked to Toronto's red-hot pre-construction condo market, thinking it was a can't-lose investment. But now, rising interest rates and flattening sales prices are spelling trouble for some. Farah Morali explains.
That has now shot up to $875,000.
In the last year, prices went up 18%.
So I think we're going to see continued multiple offers.
For nearly a decade, that has been the story of Toronto's red-hot condo market. Buying a unit, or several, long regarded as a sound investment. But some who bought pre-construction units are now finding themselves in an increasingly difficult financial position.
It's those people who bought condos with short closings, so 2-3 years out, that are in a lot of trouble right now.
With interest rates significantly higher than a few years ago, some of those investors are now facing much higher than expected costs, some even struggling to close on their deals.
And so we have, well over 150 units that are coming up on closing in the next few weeks. And so we're putting out a lot of fires and, connecting people to mortgage brokers and all the right people to make sure that their deals go through.
And it's not just interest rates. Numbers from the Toronto Region Real Estate Board show a flattening of condo prices in the city of Toronto. From March to October, the average sale price down around $90,000, or about 11%. That means some bank appraisals coming up lower than some investors predicted.
That's a big financial problem. The math just doesn't work.
The hardest hit, investors who stretched themselves to buy multiple pre-construction units.
Picture someone who bought 3 with the expectation of never closing on any of them. He finds out that he can't assign any of them now, and he's got to find a way to finance the closing of 3 different condominiums in a marketplace where the rents probably won't cover the cost of the mortgage.
For this unit because
experts say some investors are now moving to the sidelines, taking more of a wait-and-see approach, and that's having ripple effects.
Starting in the spring and early summer, we started to see developers really begin to scale back on new launch activity.
While Toronto is on track for a record number of new units launched this year, it's still 10,000 fewer than expected.
Investors are starting to pull back, developers are starting to pull back, and that longer-term supply pipeline doesn't look as robust.
Experts are optimistic that investor confidence will return, but not exactly in the short term.
I think we're in for a pretty rough year of difficult situations coming in 2023.
Farah Morali, CBC News, Toronto.
Let's bring in Colette now. And Colette, frigid temperatures in some parts of the country. Where we are, though, pretty mild.
Thanks, Kelda. We're looking at some very cold air that's invaded and overtaken the prairies, and then the milder temperatures, which we're experiencing. And all along that kind of dividing line, what we're going to see is the instability of these systems kind of tracking through an area of low pressure that's moving through. At times overnight tonight, a little bit of drizzle, a little bit of light shower activity. A little further north, it's even a bit of a wet mix. But there's not a ton to this in terms of what we'll see in the GTA. it's going to be more of a nuisance just because it sticks around for a couple of days. So we deal with this overnight tonight into part of tomorrow night, and Wednesday. This is what we're looking at, though, with those temperatures staying mild in the overnight hours as well. 3 degrees, the overnight low. Tomorrow, breeze out of the east and a high of 5 degrees. And in fact, we'll see the temperature climbing a little bit further into Wednesday. I'll have more on that coming up.
Thanks so much, Colette. A Trenton, Ontario woman was in the right place at the right time in Florida recently. Judith Tyler was visiting her brother back in October when her quick actions helped to save the life of a man who was badly injured in a motorcycle accident. And we caught up with her to hear how it all happened. And a warning, some viewers may find some of the images in the story graphic.
Well, my brother, they were having a motorcycle ride, and there was I would say about 150 cyclists who were there to support my brother's foundation. And on the way back to where they had the camp out, I was in a car.
Judith Tyler is recounting the day she sprang into action. She was in the car enjoying the scenery when all of a sudden traffic in front slowed to a halt.
And I saw the man, he was lying on the ground. So the guy who was driving the car stopped. I ran over and he had no vital signs. Somebody said that he got clipped from a car. When I got there, he was lying, he wasn't moving. So I immediately started doing CPR until he started to move again and we had a heartbeat.
That man was her brother's friend, Chip. Tyler's quick action saving his life. Chip suffered multiple broken ribs, a punctured lung, and a brain bleed, but is expected to recover. Tyler's brother, David, posting this video from the hospital shortly after.
We came to see this crazy dude. He decided he wanted to fall on his motorcycle. Scared the shit out of everybody. Yeah, I said shit. But he's doing okay. This is Chip.
Chip sending this personal message to Tyler.
Hi, Judy. I don't know if you remember me. I was a peckerhead that fell down in front of you. I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you for everything you did.
The minute he sent me a message to thank me for helping him, my eyes got pretty watery. And
Tyler used to work as a nurse at a Montreal hospital, but says she never thought she would have to use her life-saving skills in a situation like this, nor does she think of herself as a hero.
People need to do that. People need to just step up and do what needs to be done. If you see something, then act, do something. You know, sometimes you don't even realize that the little bit of knowledge that you learned years ago can help save somebody's life. And if you can, do it. And I'm very happy for him that, you know, his family will be able to spend Christmas with him.
Tyler is back home in Ontario now, but plans to visit Florida again soon to see her brother and hopefully Chip.
I'm really hoping that I'll be able to see him and give him a hug. And yeah, I'd like to be able to do that.
Welcome back. Students at York University are saying a bittersweet goodbye to a piece of space technology they've been working on for 4 years. Their mini satellite is set to launch into space sometime next year, where it will be used to gather critical information about climate change. Tyler Cheese has more.
These York University researchers are celebrating the end of their part in the exciting Essence space mission.
We want to use this satellite to help us fight against the climate change.
The project involves building a mini satellite called a CubeSat that will eventually be deployed 400,000 kilometers above the Earth. From there, it will gather images and data about the permafrost in the Canadian Arctic. Researchers on Earth will then use that data to better understand the effects of climate change.
That will really help us to understand what's the impact to Canada.
The CubeSat may be small, but it's packed with a massive amount of tech, everything from a data-gathering camera to power supplying solar panels.
And inside, it's actually quite complex. There's a lot of different pieces going in, a lot of circuit boards that we've had to design and build. Some of them we've designed ourselves.
This right here is our computer. So this is fundamentally the entire device that controls the satellite.
For the undergrad students who helped to build and test it, it was the highlight of their university careers.
Never in a million years did I think that I'd be able to build a satellite by the time I graduated.
I grew up in a country that didn't have a satellite till 2 years ago. I grew up in Bangladesh. So to be able to work and build a satellite was just a dream come true.
About 150 undergrads, grad students, and professors have been involved with the project since 2018. But now their part of the Essence space mission has come to an end.
It's a little bit bittersweet.
And liftoff.
The CubeSat is set to be launched from Cape Canaveral in spring or summer of next year. But first, it'll make a stop for further testing at Canadian Space Agency HQ in Montreal. Tyler Cheese, CBC News, Toronto.
And you are looking at a live shot of the Toronto skyline. It was partly cloudy this evening with some showers developing overnight and temperatures above seasonal, currently 7 degrees in the city. Let's go back to Colette now for a more detailed look at your forecast. And Colette, we're looking at some mild but wet weather over the next few days.
Well, Kelda, it seems so often you kind of take the good with the bad when it comes to the weather forecast, and that's a bit what we're looking at. I mean, if you consider some milder temperatures good, and you consider some wet weather bad, especially maybe if you were hoping at this time of year for more snow because you'd like to be on the slopes or cross-country skiing, well, that's not what we're talking about here, because we're just looking at showers and drizzle. A bit further north, a little bit of a light wet mix possible. But the temperatures really into the GTA mild for the next few days. And then we'll see things beginning to change at the very end of the week. So think Friday into the weekend when temperatures will actually dip below normal for a change. So we go from this trend a little above to a little below. So it's spotty in nature and at times in terms of the instability we have that's moving through with this area of low pressure and then kind of the next spot that's going to come along on this exact same line. So this is the next 48 hours. Drizzle at times, a little bit of fog, a little bit of showery activity. And you saw where further to the north around Georgian Bay or into northeastern Ontario, where it's going to be more in the form because of some cooler temperatures there, where it's a light mix or some wet flurries or light wet snow there. But into Wednesday, eventually, we're going to kick this out of here, and we will hopefully get a few breaks late in the day, but if not, we should certainly into Thursday. Overnight tonight, a look at those temperatures. I've given 3s all around southwestern Ontario, and at times even in Sarnia, even though the temperature above freezing, a little bit of a mix is possible there. Drizzle tonight across the GTA. In St. Catharines, more on the warmer side here. So look at this, temperatures 6-7 degrees there, slightly cooler but still mild on the north side of Lake Ontario. There's that height Wednesday when we head up to 7 degrees. And then we transition Thursday closer to seasonal, and then that cooler air that does invade just in time for Friday and the weekend, Kelda.
Thanks so much, Colette. Trudeau and Ontario Premier Doug Ford were in Ingersoll, Ontario today. The two leaders marking the opening of this country's first full-scale electric vehicle manufacturing plant. Nisha Patel has more.
For decades, these workers built gas-powered cars. Now the vehicles they're rolling off the assembly line are all electric.
Our intent is to ramp up as quickly as possible. We have very high demand for these vehicles.
The plant in Ingersoll, Ontario will now produce BrightDrop electric delivery vans for customers including FedEx, Walmart, and Hertz in the U.S., as well as DHL in Canada.
The next decade, you're going to see an onslaught of electric vehicles. You'll see continued investment in Canada because we are all in for the future.
The factory closed in May to be retooled into a $1 billion facility, partially funded by $500 million from the provincial and federal governments combined.
We're focused on making sure we're competitive.
The investment's meant to ensure Canada's auto sector doesn't fall behind as the U.S. pushes forward with huge subsidies to secure clean energy jobs. Analysts say Canada has been holding its own, with companies like Stellantis and LG committing billions of dollars in recent months to build EVs or make batteries here.
They're well positioned to get more than their share. I think Mexico might be behind at the moment.
If Canada can keep up this momentum, it could mean shifting fortunes for auto workers.
Establishing the battery supply chain within North America is a significant opportunity.
In Ingersoll, 400 staff have been retrained to build EVs. As many as 1,600 could be on the job by the end of next year. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Ingersoll, Ontario.
QP says its Ontario education workers have voted to ratify a contract with the government.
41,559 of our 55,000 workers voted in this ratification process. and 30,330 voted in favor of this tentative agreement. That is 73%.
Here. My name is Laura Wall.
Contentious process. At one point, workers walked off the job for 2 days. That came after the government passed and later repealed legislation imposing a contract on them. The two sides returned to the bargaining table and struck a tentative deal on November 20th. The deal gives the average worker a $1 per hour raise each year. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Finally tonight, CBC is launching the 22 Acts of Kindness to close out the year on a positive note. Now, the stories from coast to coast celebrate Canadians making a difference in our communities. Sophia Megan was only 2 years old when she was diagnosed with leukemia. During her stay at Sick Kids Hospital, a custodian gifted her a sticker book. Now, the joy she felt from that one gesture of kindness became the inspiration of Love Boxes, a project that delivers toys to children in hospitals all across the GTA.
When I was 2 years old, I was diagnosed with leukemia, so I spent a lot of time in the hospital. And one time when I was getting treatment in the hospital, a very kind custodian gave me that pack of stickers, and it just made me so happy and gave me so much joy, even though it's such a little thing. When kids get love boxes, they feel so happy, and it gives them a bit of joy in a really hard, tough place. So they feel cared for. And we're about to send 5,000 boxes to a bunch of hospitals across the GTA, Durham, and up north. A recent story that has been brought to us is a boy in the hospital received a box, and he's battling cancer and just had a really major surgery. His mother emailed us after she received the box, and she was so grateful. It made him so happy because he was in a lot of pain. It's important for people to be kind and to spread love because we need to make this world a better place. I'm doing great. I'm strong, healthy, and 8 years cancer-free.
And that is our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I will have your next local newscast tomorrow at 6, and we will see you back here tomorrow night at 11. Have a great night, everyone.